Coming up on TekThing, the Raspberry Pi 3, hands-on cheap headphones, VPN for your phone, and so much more, all coming up on TekThing. If you get something useful out of this episode of TekThing, please consider contributing to the show at patreon.com/TekThing. We're brought to you by viewers just like you. Thank you so much.
I'm Shannon Morse.
And I'm Patrick Norton.
And this is TekThing, where we make technology behave.
At least on the good days.
I apologize, my voice is a little bit hoarse. I did this show at YouTube Space LA this past weekend, and I talked all freaking day, so...
You blew your voice out.
I blew my voice out. Hopefully I'm not like full of sickness.
Well, I'll just go home. You know, I'll bring Tristan in and have him cough in your general direction.
No.
Nothing cuter than a 3-year-old spreading disease around the audience. Office. Oh my goodness. It's okay.
It is okay. What do you have for us today?
I'm just trying to decide if I should go sterilize my arm.
Okay. Sanitized.
A couple days ago?
No.
No. You sanitize more often than that. I know. Because when you don't sanitize, I know. That sounds weird even to me. The ever so aware February 29th marked the leap year, right? The 4-year anniversary of the Raspberry Pi, so they launched this, the Pi 3. Yeah.
It's so pretty.
It is pretty, actually. $35 is the price. You know, okay, it's like we still got 4 USB ports and Ethernet, and there's the headphone jack and HDMI, and there's a microSD card slot. There's there's a couple major big changes. Number one, 2.4 gigahertz 802.11n Wi-Fi on the board, along with Bluetooth 4.1 and low energy Bluetooth. The Wi-Fi antenna is actually located, that little brick right there is the Wi-Fi antenna, is actually located where the LEDs used to be, and the LEDs, look kids, are right over there.
They're so cute.
It is really cute. And if you take a look, there's benchmarks running for the Raspberry Pi 3, which is running by the, actually pull the benchmarks up.
Okay.
The benchmarks are actually running on the Raspberry Pi 3 right now.
Wow.
Well, yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's a quad-core 1.2 gigahertz Broadcom BCM2837. It's a 64-bit CPU, and before you write in, it's still running a 32-bit operating system. The folks at Raspberry Pi are going to experiment with a 64-bit OS and see if it makes any reasonable difference. This is the fastest Pi ever. You're looking at about 1.5 times faster in terms of quad-core performance or multi-core performance. Lower is better. About 1.6 times as fast as a Pi 2 in single-core performance, and if I'm doing my math correctly, about 3 times as fast as the original Model B on single-core performance.
So I'm assuming that you can actually use this as a desktop.
Well, you can assume that. I should also point out, we are running it on Wi-Fi right now.
Okay.
Which we'll talk about in a second. For everybody that's wondering why we're not using the Bluetooth for the keyboard, it's because every keyboard we have here is a Logitech with a UniFi adapter or USB. So USB it is. Although I could plug in the Logitech one, I just didn't want to.
You could.
I could. But yeah, so right now, let's pull it back up. This is actually running the web pages we're looking at here. So, you know, you're not looking at this and thinking like, wow, how incredibly fast is this?
Yeah.
But on the flip side,
it's doing pretty well though.
Yeah, it's doing really well compared to certainly some of the single board systems we've tried to run. Oh, and look at that.
And we were able to play some YouTube videos on it.
We're playing YouTube. I was editing Google Docs on it. It just crashed, by the way. And just
I've seen it crash twice.
Yeah. Well, they just released the version of the firmware, the Raspbian, literally the day the Pi launched on the 29th. So stuff happens. Yeah. It's been interesting. You know, as with other Pis or the $9 chip PCs, you know, I'm going to say turning into a server or an appliance or an Internet of Things or some kind of controller is much more appropriate. I'm definitely going to be playing around with MAME and Kodi and Plex on this. I'm also ready to start puttering around with Pi BitTorrent sync boxes again. Element 14 ran a bunch of CPU and floating point benchmarks. They put the Raspberry Pi in the K7/Pentium 3 range of CPU performance. And behind both, especially the Intel and floating point performance, which is interesting.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
I've just been saying interesting a lot today. Because K7s are approximately, year 2000, and I'm now wondering if my desktop circa 2000 was really this slow. It might have been.
I think they all were.
Yeah, they just seemed fast at the time. 1 gigabyte of RAM on board, the same 40-pin GPIO as the other Pi boxing. So it's totally Pi 1 and 2 compatible. All of your existing Pi hats or adapters will work.
Is there anything that people don't like about this new one?
Yeah, it was funny reading some of the comments.
Really?
Yeah, well, the first thing like a friend of mine tweeted was like, "Oh, it only has 1 gigabyte of RAM," which I get. People want more RAM. A lot of folks would have liked to have seen SATA on the board. A lot of folks asked for gigabit Ethernet on the board.
Okay.
A lot of folks would like Pi to move off of a chip that combines USB and Ethernet and stuffs them both. Basically, all 4 USB ports and the Ethernet are stuffed over a single USB port on the system on the chip.
Oh, I see. So then you would just use a hub.
Well, no. Like literally, like when you think of all of this stuff down here, these 4 Ethernet ports, which is essentially basically there's a hub, 4 USB ports, and the Ethernet all go over the equivalent of a single USB port on the system on a chip, or a single USB. Basically, Ethernet and USB are combined into a single USB.
Gotcha.
So if you want to do stuff that's heavy on the Ethernet, you can't really do stuff that's heavy on the USB.
Right.
Or you can, but it's a bottleneck.
They run into issues.
There's a bottleneck thing there. I think using the Wi-Fi on board will help with that. It's certainly a nice addition, especially for embedded stuff if you want to play around to be able to access it and not have to spend like another $9. Something to think about if you want more performance out of a Raspberry Pi. Not all microSD cards are equal. Back in December, Jeff Geerling did a Raspberry Pi microSD card performance comparison. He found, and this is pretty serious, an order of magnitude difference between most cheap cards and the slightly more expensive ones, even if both are rated as being in the same class, especially in small block random I/O performance. As an example, if you use a normal cheap microSD card for your database server, normal database operations can literally be 100 times slower than if you used a standard microSD card.
Wow.
It's pretty impressive. It turns out a $17 Samsung card pretty much kicks ass random reads and writes, especially compared to some of the other more expensive or more higher rated cards, and I ordered a couple of those to check out.
Yay!
Yeah, I'm excited.
I am too.
This is the most powerful $35 PC we've seen so far. There are some more expensive options up in the $100 range. It's also interesting to play around some more with the chip $9 PC because the decisions on that, right? The chip $9 PC, it only has 1 USB port. You don't want to run multiple USB devices off of it without having a powered hub. It doesn't have Ethernet, but it does have onboard Wi-Fi, it does have onboard Bluetooth, and that makes it really compelling to use as something like a music server or something like that, where you don't need a lot of...
Have you tested the sound at all yet?
I've tested the sound. The sound is okay. I prefer, at this point, I'm like, I really need an external USB DAC. You know, I can listen to the sound off of this, but the audio on the audio on any $30 PC is not great.
Yeah.
So, and that is partially because it's not great and partially because I am in total audio nerdvana at this point. But lots of projects. We're going to be playing around with those. I don't think I'm going to be running pfSense on this anytime soon, but a pfSense build may be in our near future.
I want to buy one.
You want to buy
or 3.
Oh, Raspberry Pi?
Yeah,
Element 14 is the place to get one. They are waiting for their drop ship, so you can pre-order one now.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, let us know what you guys want us to build with our new Raspberry Pi 3s. I'm so excited, and we will be right back.
You are amazing! Seriously, you make TekThing happen by contributing small amounts per episode at patreon.com. It's called crowdfunding, and crowdfunding is awesome. It means we get to focus on making great content for you, our viewers. And our patrons, they get special access to our special patron builds, because they're really special videos, and early heads up on what's coming, that's special too, and even monthly hangouts on certain levels of support, which are really special, because you get to talk to us completely unfiltered by the miracle of online video. Well, except they are online videos, because it's Skype, but do us a favor, go check out patreon.com/TekThing. And hey, if you can't donate, that is okay. Keep firing out your questions and tips. Write us a review on iTunes. Give our videos a thumbs up on YouTube. Share the links with your friends. Each and every contribution makes the show that much stronger. And thank you so much for being a part of TekThing.
3 questions answered, 3 reviews, 3 picks, all in 3 minutes. And this week we have a rapid fire roundup of cheap or inexpensive headphones. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Go.
All right, people, no microphones here, no fancy cases, no fine Corinthian leather, just audio. That's what defines the inexpensive headphones I'm looking at this week. And unlike last week's luxury headphones, pretty much anybody can afford these. First up, ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you the Monoprice Premium Hi-Fi DJ Style Over-the-Ear Pro Headphone, aka the 8323. The cable is removable and swappable, which is good because it's 10 feet long, which is kind of ridiculous if you're using it with your phone. The ear pads are made out of genuine faux plastic. The construction actually is really all kinds of plastic. That said, they are hard to kill, they sound good, and are stupid cheap. I paid 23 bucks for these, if memory serves. They're now down to $16.
Wow.
Are there headphones that sound better? Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good price.
But for $16, I don't have to worry about getting them trashed. If you need something to travel with, I mean, put these in your bag. They don't break. I've slept in them. The 3-year-old has worn them. People have used them on field shoots and banged them around. And at $16, you don't really worry about them.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Number 2. This is the Sony MDR7506. The best headphone under $150, says the wire cutter. Good, high, solid bass, very neutral. The bass isn't accentuated or pushed or overdone. It's satisfying. You can find these on recording desks and editing stations all over the place. A lot of professionals use these. The best thing, they cost 80 bucks. You're gonna wear out a few sets of ear pads long before these stop running, and I'll be honest with you, I have the cousins to these, which is the Sony MDR V6 is a pair that's over 20 years old at this point.
Wow.
I am on my second or third set of ear pads. I did eventually have to resolder it once because I loaned it to somebody and they shut the cable in a car door and then ran out and ripped the cable out of the side of them. Other than that, they are still bomb-proof.
I can vouch for those. Yeah. We use them in our Hack 5 studio. We've taken them to different conventions like CES. They're pretty awesome.
They sound good.
They do sound good.
They sound good. Grado's SR60Es. Open-backed, so not the most practical thing for the bus or subway, but this headphone changed my life. People either love or hate the way they sound, but if you want bright, sparkling highs and a big open sound stage, these are impossible to beat for the money. They're pretty amazing, the third iteration of a classic entry-level audiophile can, and guess what? They are made in Brooklyn, USA by a really nice family. They also cost 80 bucks. I should also point out before somebody's like, why don't you have those on set? Because every time I loan them to someone, I don't get them back.
Oh no.
Oh yes. People are like, I love these. These are amazing. I didn't know headphones could sound like this. And then eventually, I mean, I'll probably get them back in like 3 months. But like somebody borrows them and they float off. And in a few months they come back.
That's so funny.
It is funny. It's also, you know, it's a really amazing sounding headphone. Again, open back, not the thing you want to use for commuting. I have not heard the Fostex TH7BB semi-open dynamic stereo headphones or the closed back Creative Aurvana Live. Those both sell for 50 bucks. But people I respect very much say they are incredibly impressive, or at least very impressive for the money. So we got 16, we got 50, we got $80, we got sealed options, we got open options. If you got more thoughts about headphones, email us, ask@tekthing.com, or tweet at Patrick Norton, or tweet at Snubs or at TekThing, and we will talk a little bit more about this. And if you're over headphones at this point, I completely understand too. Anthony sent an email to ask@tekthing.com, and he wrote, "Hi guys, love the episode about keeping data safe with encryption, the Vericrypt thing. I've been hearing you guys mention VPN and proxies and want to know, could you go into a little more detail about them? Upon some internet reading, there are a few for Windows like CyberGhost, etc., but can you use VPNs with Android? Are these a good way to keep your privacy online and protect yourself from hackers, especially on public Wi-Fi spots? Thanks, Anthony."
All right.
Sorry, I'm using the Brooklyn / North Jersey
I like it.
/ Philly.
So you mentioned VPN and proxies, and I'm going to focus on VPNs because short answer, yes, those do help a lot with like keeping yourself secure against badass hackers. So yeah, short answer, yes. Long answer, there are some caveats. So look at it this way. A VPN provider is offering you a service by securely tunneling your data from point A, which would be you, to point B, C, D, and so forth, whatever websites that you want to get to. And they're creating a tunnel instead of like having you out in the World Wide Web for anybody to touch and pry at.
Private internet.
Your own private internet, that's right.
It's funny, like VPNs really started with, on one hand, hackers, and the other hand, incredibly large corporations with a lot to protect, wanting to move information over the internet without the internet seeing it.
Right.
And then people realized that could be useful.
Yeah, they did for a series of things. So a company is going to give you this access to a VPN, a virtual private network of all these protected machines that they own. So they keep all these servers themselves. Your data is going to pass through it until it pops out as some other end. Where that end is, we'll find out. But your data will only be as secure as that VPN provider is. Some VPN providers log information on you whenever you're logged in, such as your IP address or the dates and times that you're on their VPN. So make sure that you read the terms of service for any potential provider before you start giving them money, because that's a really, really important part. Also check what kind of protocols that they are using for the connection. SSL is the one that a lot of banks use. That one's extremely popular with VPN providers.
Secure socket layers.
Secure socket layer, yes. I did a hack tip episode way back in the day. I'll put the link in the show notes about how to determine whether your traffic is actually being encrypted or not on SSL. It's hack tip 131. It's kind of cool when you can pull up stuff in Wireshark and be like, oh yeah, that's SSL.
Your
yes,
stuff's
you
secure.
see those bits and those 1s and 0s? Yeah, that's
Although
SSL.
apparently the implementation of the HTTPS protocol used by like 11 million servers is compromised.
Yeah.
But we're learning more about that.
We are. Nothing is ever perfect. Nothing. So when in doubt, I always recommend using an SSL VPN if you have that option. Also find out what kind of exit node locations they are using. Like if you want to watch BBC UK, but you live in a country outside of the UK, make sure that they have an exit node in the UK so that you can watch the BBC UK, or else you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because VPN started to be like, I'm going to be secure. I'm going to securely communicate on the internet, right? Because there's this network that I want to use.
Yeah.
And then it became, oh, I don't want people to see what I'm browsing on the internet, so I will use a VPN and my packets will get sucked off the internet from like, okay, I'm in California, maybe my search request is coming out in Tennessee or Canada or Sweden. And then people realized they could use them for geo-shifting or geolocation. So if I want to watch curling, but the site is blocked to Canadian IP addresses, I can tunnel into Canada. Well, yeah, but people use them to access, people have used them to access, before Netflix was on every country, they would use VPNs to tunnel into the US.
Not that I'm going to call anybody out for that. But just to reiterate though, yes, this is going to protect you a lot, but this does not make you invincible like Boris in 007. You remember, I am invincible. Actually, he wasn't. He got shot. So don't download stupid stuff just because you're using a VPN. You can still get owned by malware on your computer. Another question is, do you want free versus paid? So this is a rare occasion, because I love my couponing, where I would say pay for one, because free isn't necessarily free if they are making money off of you by serving up advertisements or selling your log data to a third party. Another reason why you want to read those terms of service.
The most valuable mailing list in the United States used to be this company that they sold nose hair clippers in the back of magazines. No, you laugh, right? But the kind of people who are so embarrassed by buying nose hair clippers from the drugstore that they will avoid the embarrassment by mail ordering them from the back of the magazine turns out to be incredibly valuable for other people that would like to sell things to people that maybe have low self-esteem or are really nervous about buying things in public. So if you're a VPN and you know what people are searching on, you could say, oh, what are the most popular torrents searched on my VPN? What are people searching for? What are the naughty things they're doing? And some VPNs are a little scummy, and some VPNs are amazing, which brings us to Torrent Freak.
That's right, yes. So Torrent Freak, great website. They did a whole listing, and I think we've mentioned this before, a review called, Is Your VPN Service Really Anonymous? They did a whole listing of tons of different ones, private internet access, and they asked them all, do you make any logs? What is your takedown notice? What do you do whenever somebody sends you a DMCA complaint? And so on and so forth. So they went through a ton of different ones, and it's an excellent, excellent write-up in case you're wondering about ones for any operating system, really. Now, with that said, though, you asked specifically about Android, so I've got a pretty long list. I have 7 total that I tested of VPN providers that do offer Android VPNs along with iOS too. Yeah, I figured you would ask. I figured you would. So all of these are available, or at least most of them are available on Linux, Mac, Windows, iOS, and Android, which is pretty sweet that they're all very well cross-platformed.
Well, it's nice also
or they have a mix of either or.
Pretty much all platforms are using VPN, or you can go to Hack5 and learn how to build your own personal open VPN. If you're just worried about keeping your packets safe while you're at the cafe, or making sure somebody at the cafe isn't sniffing your junk. If your junk is packets, then a VPN, even tunneled into your own home network with an open VPN server at home, will help.
So the 7 I tested out were Hotspot Shield, Hideman VPN, TorGuard, VPN by Private Internet Access, CyberGhost, IPVanish VPN, and TunnelBear. So if I run through them a little bit for you, and I'll pull up my computer once again. The first one, Hotspot Shield, this one has the most defaulted to on permissions. So permissions for Android. So specifically when you first download it, it wants permissions for your contacts, your phone, and your storage. And I was like, not too comfortable with that.
Do they need access to your phone and your storage? I mean,
storage I can understand because if you want to transfer files through the VPN, so I get that. Contacts, you don't necessarily need. Phone, you don't really need either. So
and this is something we've talked about.
Turn those off.
That Android's especially vulnerable to weird little apps. Like the worst one used to be like the flashlight app that basically asks for access to every single thing on your phone.
Weird. I don't understand. No.
Naughty hacking is what it was.
The second one, Hideman VPN, this one has access to phone and storage. It's already opted in for you, so you can turn those off in the newest version of Android. TunnelBear, this one was not only cute, but they also have default access to storage. And then the other one, which was interesting, was CyberGhost. So this one
it's got a hacker with torn off sleeves.
Look at that hacker.
Ooh, truly elite mustache.
Scary. So this one asks for location and storage info, but both of those are default to turned off.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is kind of nice. The other ones that I checked out, TorGuard, Private Internet Access, and IPVanish VPN, don't require any extra permissions whatsoever. Like there's nothing. Which is pretty sweet. Now with the newer operating system though, again with Marshmallow, you can turn those on and off straight through your settings. You just go to applications and then choose the application, choose permissions, and then you can choose which things you want on and off, which is very, very nice with Android. That's one thing I really, really appreciate because we needed it for a long time. Okay, so let's go ahead and run through the different ones that I decided to check out. We'll start with IPVanish VPN.
Okay.
This one costs $10 a month and up. There is no trial whatsoever, but it works very flawlessly on my Android device. And it was actually very easy to use. Each of these, surprisingly, was easy to use. I downloaded all 7 on the same phone, which was very complicated once I started running all of them. But
I like the idea that like if you leave 2 or 3 of them on, you may potentially be like running out of one VPN to run into another to run into another.
My computer or my phone had no clue what it was doing. It was just like, do you know that you have 6 of these running at the same? I was like, all of you, close. The second one, Hotspot, that one is free, but there is also an elite package, and I believe the packages range in pricing for the elite version. Yeah, so they're $2.08 for 24 or per month for 24 months. It just depends on how you decide to pay, so that it ranges in prices going up from there.
When you pay for most of these, are they offering you faster throughput? Or are they offering you more data?
So the ones that have trial accounts, first off, a lot of them have advertisements built in, and then you get no advertisements after those. Other ones allow you to do only up to 500 megabytes per month. And then after that, you have to pay for additional gigs. Other ones allow you to do 1 hour or 6 hours for free. And then if you want more than that, you have to pay for more. So it really depends on which service you choose to go with, because each of them calculate the amount that you have to pay depending on a different type of service, whether that's free or no advertising or time or amount of data that you actually want to soak up.
And it's worth also, searching around if you can find people in your area that use these, if they can comment on the speed of them, because not all VPNs are created equal in terms of speed. TunnelBear claims to be the fastest.
So this one was so cute. It makes noises when you download it, and it has little bears that pop out of pipes. It's very cute. And I was like, what the? It made me giggle, for like legitimately giggle.
Stylish graphics, excellent marketing.
It's very cute. Yeah, they do great with the marketing. So it's free for 500 megs. $3.99 per month and up from there, just for Android, and it's also hilariously cute. So for each of those prices, of course, it goes up, and this one is the one I was mentioning as far as pricing changing depending on how much data you actually want to use. CyberGhost, the one I mentioned earlier, that one is free with an upgrade to the full application for $69.99 a year. CyberGhost, I had a few issues with because this one ran somewhat slow on my Nexus 6P, which strikes me as very odd because I have not had this issue on the 6P with any other apps. VPN or not. So I had some issues with how slow it was and responsive every time I chose to go through the menu. And that kind of caught me off guard and made me think, oh, maybe I don't like this one as much.
Okay.
TorGuard, which was pretty cool, that one does not have a free service. It's $9.99 per month and cheaper for longer packages. And then VPN by Private Internet Access. They have the weirdest name, and it's so vague. VPN by Private Internet Access. So this one's $39.95 per year or $6.95 per month. So it's not the cheapest one. It's also not the most expensive, but it also gets excellent ratings across the board.
I've used this one.
Yeah, this one is very, very popular, and it's understood why, because it's very secure. So props to PIA VPN.
I like looking at the difference between this one and the previous one, where it's like, I am lone dude with mustache working on the street versus I am like, a family man trying to hide my stuff.
Look at me and my 2 children bicycling down this very friendly neighborhood.
Anonymously doing wholesome things on the internet.
And then, of course, we had Hideman VPN, and this one is free for 6 hours, and then extra hours cost more. It starts at $2.90 per month for a subscription, or $1 for just 10 hours. So if you're going to a convention, maybe this one's a good one for you. Each of these offer great security and privacy options, though. There is one thing that I am not including, and that would be speeds, because speed tests are going to vary so much depending on your location, the location of your VPN, the location of your exit node. Very, very differential, so not including that. You can expect with any VPN, though, to notice a small decrease in speed compared to what you would usually get. And which one you choose would be completely up to you. I mean, it depends on how much you're willing to spend and what exolocations you really require for whatever you might be doing online with this VPN. And each of these are rated well, and they work very easily with Android. CyberGhost being the one I'm kind of like meh about.
But when you are shopping around, if you want access to something in a particular country, make sure you have, they have exit nodes in that country. So,
or else you get kind of screwed. So lastly, I do want to mention that you could also build your own, like Patrick mentioned earlier. You could use your home router. You can install DDWRT or Tomato on it, which both have that option to build in your own DIY VPN. But that's a kind of another story for another segment.
And there's performance questions there.
Yeah, there are performance questions, and we will need to look at the future legality since the FCC just changed the rules on us with the third-party router firmware, which is kind of an issue for any newer routers made.
I'll talk about it next week, but I got an email. I got into a conversation about this because so the FCC is essentially saying you cannot change output power on 5 gigahertz radios on routers. TP-Link was the first one to respond to that, and they basically are locking out permanently all third-party firmware. There are routers that by nature use DDWRT and or other open source router firmwares, and somebody tweeted me, linked to a couple of those.
Oh, good.
Some, and this is also a market opportunity for some, if I ever said market opportunity, this is also an opportunity for some router manufacturers to specifically take the time and the expense to set up the firmware so they lock out the radio chipset. And also there was an interesting article on Hackaday where they basically said, look, there will be third-party operating systems for these routers. It's just going to take a little while longer while people figure out how to crack them to put the third-party operating system on there.
Yeah, so that's going to be a topic for another day, but that news just posted like 24 hours ago, so it's very, very
geeking out.
new. Yeah. Good, I'm glad you were.
I've been dealing with a lot of router stuff lately. So much to learn.
If you guys have a VPN pick, send it over to me because I'm very interested in this, especially since I go to conventions a lot and I like to protect my privacy when I go to HackerCons. So I'm very interested in finding a good VPN provider. Of course, you can always email me, ask@tekthing.com. Somebody has his hand raised.
Well, at the risk of sounding tinfoil hattish, if you regularly use the free Wi-Fi at a coffee shop or a cafe or let's say the airport in Las Vegas at McCarran. Well, don't, but if you do, and I can totally see why you might, use a VPN, especially if you want to do anything that you would like to keep private, like your business or your banking or your login for something.
Yep, agreed.
Just saying.
Email us, ask@tekthing.com, and we will be right back.
If you haven't seen it yet, ladies and gentlemen, our February patron build is live. I built an amp, actually a pair of amps from a Nelson Pass design. He is a legendary audiophile amplifier designer and DIY audio put together kits with all the parts you need, including the enclosures.
So cool.
This is how I always solder. I solder this fast all the time. I am a
That's
machine.
all you get to see.
So,
Bow.
if you are a patron, you should have the link to that video in your inbox or on patreon.com/TekThing. We had some great responses, actually. We talked last week. We had a viewer question. It was like, how do I deal with safe search on the internet? How do I keep my kids safe? One of the best responses we got from Loudmouth Man, that's his Twitter name. He sent us a link via Twitter to an op-ed he wrote for the districtpost.co.uk. And he basically talks about responsibility, or I should say safety and responsibility for our children online. He takes the view that I'm responsible for my child's internet habits just as if I were sitting in a cafe or any other public space. I have 3 rules which I expect them to remember, and I ask them to repeat these most months. This is more for the sake of the 9-year-old than the 4, but the rules will remain the same. The first, this is important, the first is that they should never share password or account information with their friends. There is no good reason to give their BFF information on how they log on to anything. The second is that they should never accept any account or access information to any site. If they want to join a site or add a new application, they have to come and ask us, and we will sit together and set this up. The third and final rule is that they must never share information regarding themselves, such as their gender, how old they are, or where they live. If they're on the computers and have access to the internet, they are to do it downstairs and where we can see the screens at all times. Great
Good
article.
points.
Links to those in the show notes. And yeah, this is a good foundation.
Yeah.
Walter says, Google Safe Search, keep computers in a public room, and that many routers now let you turn on filtering as well as access time on individual devices. Use it. And by the way, the hosts for file editing, if you Google MVPS hosts, file blocking for a good list of malware sites to be blocked, which is great even if you aren't worried about kids and maybe you're worried about somebody over in accounting that has a terrible habit of downloading things they shouldn't. These things, coupled with random surprise checks of computers, have kept the naughty webs about as unavailable to my kids as their granddad's Playboys were to me when I was a kid, writes Walt. Andrew says, on episode 60, you ask how parents monitor internet access. I most agree with Patrick in that monitoring your kids while using the internet is the best practice. I've taken it one step further and have blocked internet access to my kids' devices during specific hours. For example, my kids can use the internet from 5 to 8 p.m. on weekdays and from 12 to 9 on weekends. I have settings on my router that can block internet traffic by MAC based on schedule. All I have to do is enter in the MAC address of their iPads and laptops. For us, this works because they can still use the devices during off hours but aren't up all night texting and messaging their friends. This will not work as well with phones, but my kids don't have phones yet. Signed, Andrew.
Good points.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good points.
Phones.
And of course, next week we are going to share some useful ideas from Kimberly, who is a teacher and a geek aunt, which I'm totally going to end up being a geek aunt one of these days, who reminds us that kids need to be taught how to search correctly and that filters and other parenting software should be a consequence of bad behavior if used at all.
But she's got some good ideas on like how to introduce the idea of how to search, how to teach kids how to search,
That's
what
cool.
to do when they find something they didn't want to find.
Yeah.
By the way, on a completely non-child related internet safety search note, if anybody knows of an Intel-based tablet that'll run a mainstream, a full distribution of Linux, let us know because Zine is looking for a solid Linux tablet.
Cool.
Tablet.
A tablet.
A tablet, not a tablet.
I'll have to look into that because I'm curious too. Yeah. And of course, remember, once in a while, put down your phone, step away from the screen, close your laptop,
Or
and
unplug your Pi.
Or unplug your Pi and do something analog. Like, I'm voting for having a seriously relaxing day at a spa because seriously, dudes, you would be amazed at how relaxing a sauna can be. I know it sounds girly, but just try it. Just do it once.
What does using a sauna have to do with a spa?
They have saunas and spas. They have masseuses and mani and pedi places and all sorts of things. You could get a pedi. Pedis are very nice.
I'm going to go down the Russian sauna over in San Francisco. Beat myself with birch branches. That's old school. If you've never been into a full-on old school like Russian sauna, like Ukrainian sauna,
the ones I go to are like
you haven't had an experience.
Beautiful music.
I guess they're actually like
Getting
steam
a back
baths,
massage.
not saunas.
Chilling in a hot tub.
I'm just not ready for a petting, people.
I
But
am.
apparently hanging out with like 300-year-old Ukrainian people in a steam bath is okay.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Shannon
We'll
Morse.
see you next week on TekThing.
I don't know what just happened.
I don't know, but every time I see that thing, it just makes me laugh. The focus stick.
That sounds fun.
We used to get actually that and Vapor Case. We used to go to the hot springs in Glenwood Springs in Colorado.
Cool.
We would watch the snow melt. It would be dark after we closed the ski school. The Colorado River would be there, and you would climb. You would find out which the hot springs would leak in the Colorado River. In the summer, people would build like little stacks of rocks, so the different areas would have different temperatures,
that is awesome.
and you would find the tub that felt right. And we would sit there and watch the trains run on the other side of the Colorado River and the traffic, and we'd go like watch the snow melt and hang out, and everybody would drink beer, and then I would still be sober, and I would drive everybody home. So.
Oh man, that sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, it was good. It's good to watch trains while sitting in a hot tub next to the Colorado River.
Yeah.
Just remember, when you hit the Colorado River, don't fall in because it's really cold and hypothermia kills.
So let's take a picture. We need a picture.
Hypothermia?
We need a picture. I'm thinking. I'm producing.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to go take a picture.